Okay, so my time clock, all of them say it is 6 o'clock. So let's get this party started. Thank you everyone for coming and joining Pioneer Community Energy for another one of our community meetings. What we are going to do is go through a presentation. It's pretty thorough and should answer quite a lot of questions. If you have questions, we would ask you to put them in the chat. Mark will be moderating and we'll go over those at the end. And we will also probably have an opportunity for you to be unmuted and ask questions in person if you need via voice. So hang with us and we'll get that going. So let's get this started and we are going to go with this. Your host today is Alexia Ritalik and Mark Riffey. I'm a program specialist here and Mark is our director of marketing. So who is Pioneer and what are we up to? Pioneer Community Energy is a locally owned provider of electricity. That means that we are actually owned by the people of Placer County and El Dorado County. And our goal is to provide competitive rates and the types of programs that our communities are looking for energy. We are looking for we want to have reliable energy solutions. We want to have an impact on our communities. And so that's kind of the genesis of who Pioneer is and what we're trying to accomplish. So in addition to that, when we've already covered the community owned, we are a not-for-profit program. That means that as a local government agency, we don't have investors, we don't have shareholders, we don't pay dividends. Everything that we do is about ratepayer benefits and returning benefits to our communities. Like we said, we have Placer and El Dorado counties, and we have Auburn, Colfax, Lincoln, Loomis, Placerville, and Rockland. So for those of you in El Dorado County, basically from it's most of the west slope of El Dorado County. We do not serve Liberty Utilities area. So if you have someone who has Liberty Utilities, Pioneer is not serving that area at this time. So when the enrollment, which began this month, when it's complete, there should be about 160,000 Pioneer customers. So here's a visual of the service area just to kind of give, we gave a description, but here you can see how it actually looks. If you're looking at this, the blue is the service area, and that is the area that's also served by PG&E. Pioneer Community Energy uses PG&E's lines and poles to transport electricity. If you look at the top map for Placer County, you'll see over in the corner, there's some pink there for Roseville, a little bit of SMUD. Roseville, it has its own utility district, and SMUD has a little bit of service into the Placer County area. So we don't serve in those areas. And to what would be the east of Placer and east of El Dorado County, you can see the Liberty Utilities area that serves basically most of Tahoe and a little bit into the Sierra Nevada. Okay, so what we've got going on is January is our enrollment. And so this is kind of an overview of who does what and how things work. So before January 1, PG&E was purchasing the power, PG&E had all the lines and transmissions, PG&E provided all the customer service, and PG&E did the bills, and customers would pay PG&E. All of it is called being bundled. That's what a bundled customer is. You're getting all of your services, including the generation, from one source. On January 1, that became unbundled. Now Pioneer purchases the power, and Pioneer uses PG&E lines and poles to deliver it. PG&E still maintains those lines and poles. That is their goal. That is their job. That is where PG&E's primary revenue resources is in lines and poles and transmission. You still have PG&E for customer service. So anytime there's an outage or a storm and we lose power, or if there's something that's going on with one of the power poles or a meter, you give a call to PG&E. When you have information or requests about your billing, especially if it revolves around Pioneer Community Energy and our charges, you give a call to Pioneer. PG&E by law is our biller, or our billing agent. So you will see Pioneer on the same bill with PG&E. You pay one source. If you have automatic payments, it goes right to PG&E, and it's up to PG&E to sort it out and pass along those funds that belong to Pioneer. So for you, it's as a customer, it should be very seamless. So we've had a lot of folks, we've been doing a lot of outreach since last August, and we've had folks go, oh my gosh, we haven't heard anything about this. What have you been doing to reach us? Well, we've had over 3,000 customer calls and emails. We've had 40 community presentations and key external stakeholder engagement. What that means is we went to community service districts, Rotary clubs. We attended different functions. We've been with the chambers. We've had 48 social media posts and we have about 570 followers. Now, that doesn't look like a lot until you look at how many thousands of impressions we have, and those impressions are in the hundreds of thousands. So we've had media ads running, we've had posts that have been shared and forwarded and things along those lines. So we've used social media as much as we can. We have also, because we are not necessarily on Nextdoor, we have partnered with members of El Dorado County and the city of Placerville to add information on Nextdoor where possible. We've had 28 earned media stories. Based on the distribution and the reach of those different media outlets, about 2.9 million views. Now, that's not 2.9 million people. That's 2.9 million views, which means someone may have clicked on it a couple of times, or it would have popped up here and there in a few of their news links and stuff like that. We also inserted a flyer. It's actually, we call it a special insert tabloid into the newspapers, and it was about an 8-page document that had information about Pioneer, and it went into all of the newspapers in both Placer County and El Dorado County in an effort to provide additional information about who Pioneer is and what we do. So just some information to kind of give you some heads up on things that are happening right now. PG&E has some rate changes going into place. A lot of folks will be seeing their first bill with Pioneer in February. It just happens to overlap with the timing that PG&E has on their significant increase in transmission and distribution. If you remember, we told you that Pioneer has the lines, has the generation, but PG&E has the lines and poles. And so what's happening is PG&E has adjusted the rates on the lines and poles, and that increase was 12.6% that went into effect on January 2022. So for those of us, depending on when our billing is in January, we will see that increase on transmission and distribution. You can separate that and look at what Pioneer's generation is, which will be on about page 3, 4 of your bill, depending on whether you are a solar customer or not, about page 7 if you have solar. In addition to that, PG&E has announced that it will be having an increase effective in March of 2022. This is still scheduled. They have reassured a number of times that they are feeling pretty comfortable that this is going to go through. And so that increase will be on generation. And so just to keep everyone in my ahead of the schedule and kind of keeping you apprised of what's going on. In addition to that, there will be a PCIA modification effective March 2022. So PCIA is the Public Charge Indifference Adjustment. We also have it commonly referred to as the exit fee. It is a legacy power cost fee that PG&E places on folks who become either direct access or community choice aggregation members. And it is based on the year that you leave or the year that you're granted the ability to choose between Pioneer or PG&E. And so that's going to change effective March 2022 for both Placer County and El Dorado County residents. So Pioneer's board just approved recently. This is what our board did. Effective March 2022, and I should say this is the first adjustment that the Pioneer Board has made to rates since October of 2019, so almost 2 years. They're going to, they wanted to ensure that El Dorado County enjoyed a discount. So they said no matter what PG&E does, they're going to provide at least a 6% discount on your generation for those folks who are with Pioneer come March 2022. So this is kind of a, yes.
We have a hand up and I want to make sure it's not a technical challenge.
Oh, very good.
Cindy. Oh, the hand's come down now. So I guess we're good.
Okay, so Cindy, if you have a question, please take note of it and let's get that in the chat or in the Q&A at the end and make sure that we get your question answered if we don't ahead of time. So with that, okay, so this is Pioneer versus PG&E as of January, February, kind of giving you an idea of what it looks like in El Dorado County as the rates stand at this very moment. You can see in the Pioneer standard, that is our regular rate. That is the rate that everyone's transitioned onto automatically. That is the standard portfolio. So it's about 7.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Pioneer Green 100 starts with that base rate, but then we add a penny to it. So the Green 100 is a special option that you have if you're someone who's interested in climate change, and it's a personal philosophy of yours to support more renewables on the grid and moving California closer to 100% in renewable period. This is an option for you. Next to that is the PG&E bundled rate. And what that means is that when you look at PG&E's rates, they pull out the transmission, the distribution, and then this is their generation rate. So you can see Pioneer Standard is 7.7%, PG&E's generation rate is 11.4 at this point in time. So you move forward down from there. So we see the green rate, that's the adder, and then you have PG&E's delivery rate. They have about a 17.2% delivery rate. That's the same. We have a lot of folks say, oh, well, can PG&E charge me something different because I'm with Pioneer for my lines and poles? No, they can't. That is not allowed. They must provide all of the customers the same service, the same charges. So residential customers, we're looking at 17.2% our cents, and it's the same across the board. Here's where the things get a little different. The next one is the PG&E surcharge. That's the one that's in red. It's the 2.8 cents, or if you round up, 2.9. That surcharge is what we were talking about earlier, the fee that PG&E charges for legacy power. And by that, we mean PG&E goes through as a utility, we buy long-term contracts, and those long-term contracts are sometimes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years out. And so PG&E's been purchasing power on everyone's behalf, planning for serving load. Well, when you leave to be a community choice aggregator customer, or you join Pioneer or one of the other programs that are around the state, that year that you leave is the year that you get a vintage and the year that PG&E stops buying power on your half. But what happens to all that power they already purchased for you? Well, they're guaranteed a rate of return, and they need to make sure that they don't have any costs that are stranded and passed on back on to the others who didn't leave. And so this is a way of making that up. Every year it changes based on what contracts come on and off, based on some other factors that every year we go to the Public Utilities Commission and evaluate and challenge and review, and those things change. That's why come March 2022, the PCIA rate is changing, and we will see what those are when PG&E files their advice letter in February. So with all of those things combined, this is what the rates look like currently. This is if you're with Pioneer in January, you would pay 27.8 cents for Pioneer Standard. You'd pay 28.9 cents for PG&E, and you'd pay 28.9 for Pioneer's Green Rate, or 28.6 for PG&E. So you can see when you look at those, the difference between Pioneer Standard and PG&E is about $8 a month. So that's what you would be looking at. The calculation's about 7%. So again, Pioneer's Community Energies Board has promised and that they want to have a 6% discount starting in March. No matter what PG&E does, they want to make sure that there is savings for Placer County and El Dorado County. So as noted, these are for E1 customers. This works very similar for all the other rates, but with time of use and stuff, it's complicated. So we used a straight residential rate to show. Now, this is what we're looking at in March 2022. This is kind of an insight. We're still waiting to see that everything is set and is absolute. And so as you can see, PG&E, we're going, Pioneer's rate's going to be 11.4 cents, and PG&E is going up to 15.5 or 15.6, depending on how you round it up. Delivery charge is still going to be the same. PG&E is adjusting the 2021 vintage for El Dorado County, so that, or anyone who's on the 2021 vintage, so that'll be 3 cents. And when you look at the total, there's what you see. It's 31.7 cents for Pioneer Standard and 32.7 for PG&E. That change means about $317 if you're with Pioneer, or $327 if you're with PG&E, so about $10 a month in savings. Actual rates, we're going to, now this is predicated on what we've been told or has been kind of suggested might happen. We have to wait until February when things are actually filed with the Public Utilities Commission to know what those final rates will be. But this gives you an idea of what we're looking at in March. Okay. So from there, let's go into enrollment timeline. For a lot of folks, there are a couple different timelines. For folks who do not have solar, the enrollment dates were in January. So it's whatever your billing date ends in January, that's the next day is when you begin with Pioneer. So some people have their billing date end January 3rd, and others have their billing end January 17th. If you're January 3rd, you roll into with Pioneer January 4th. If you're January 17th, you start with Pioneer on January 18th. That's kind of how it works. Around that enrollment date, Pioneer had regulatory requirements for notices. So we mailed out a notice in November. It was an 8.5 by 11 postcard flyer that went out to everybody. We did the first one to mail to everyone. It's important to note, we use the address that's on file with PG&E. And for those of you who have e-bill, if you haven't updated your mailing address, it's possible that notice didn't get to you. On the second notice, we tried a combination of both email and mail, and it was an interesting experience, and found that a lot of what seemed to be preferred was the paper notice. So the third and fourth notices will also be sent via regular post. So you'll be looking for those. You should see one in February and one in March. These notices are sent out 60 days ahead of time, 30 days ahead, then 30 days after enrollment, and 60 days after enrollment per Public Utilities Commission requirements. So for solar customers, if you are a solar customer and you can think about what your true update is, you can see the true up months. We kind of pair them up. January, February goes, March, April is paired together, May, June's paired together, July, August, etc. The first notice for each of those enrollment dates is again 60 days out. So for the March, April team, this is the month that you'll start seeing those postcards arrive. For the May, June folks, you'll see your first postcard in March. What that means, those first notice months, it means that your account's been activated, so we can actually take some kind of action. Prior to that activation date, if you want to enroll, not a problem, but no other action can happen, which means we are protecting the true ups. It's a mechanism and a way of ensuring that folks who have solar have their true ups protected, and there's no accidental early enrollments. So you'd have to take an active role and call us up and say, hey, my true up's in May, but I want to join you now. And then we could do some action. But until then, we can't take action. We can't do an early opt out or anything along those lines. So as you can see, there's the months that you're enrolling. The February is going in January, so they should have received notices and are moving in, or have made their choices. March, April, your time frame's March. So April folks, yeah, we do move you into the March time frame and kind of enroll it together. So your time to make choices and stuff is in January, and on down the line. Again, we'll note, while we cannot opt you out early, if it was your preference, you are welcome to enroll early, and you can opt in to Pioneer. We've had a couple of folks exercise that option because they wanted to. So a lot of folks are telling us, hey, you know, not too fond of the automatic enrollment. We don't like people telling us what to do. We hear you. We understand. There are a couple of reasons that the legislature set up community choice aggregation to work in an opt-out option. Number one, and one of the more pressing issues, was to make sure that there was fair and equal access. The community could not decide to do community choice aggregation and then exclude anybody in the service area from participating. This was fair and equal access to all. We take everyone or we take no one. So that was one of the things they did. They would want any cherry picking. The second thing, in order to be able to have enough load, means enough people aggregated together to buy power in bulk, they had to have a process that let us start with a good amount of customers. And so that's why it's an opt-out. Aggregation allows us to start with a load, and then we adjust as people make their choice to stay or to go. And that's how that works. That's why it's an opt-out option. You can stay or return to PG&E at any time. And again, we say solo customers enroll at their true update. So I know there was some rumors going around that you had to make your choice by January 1, and you actually have more time than that. You can choose to stay or go now, in February and in March. The only difference for those of you who are enrolling with this January period is after March, PG&E will want to hold you for a year, and you'll need to make a choice about whether to go right back to PG&E immediately or to take a couple of months to get there. So just so you have that as a heads up. So opt-outs, like we said, you can opt out at any time. There is no fee for Pioneer for opting out. There's no fee for joining Pioneer. We don't have those things. I'm not sure how that one started. We discovered a lot of people were afraid that if they opted out, they would be penalized, and you're not. This is a choice. And others who said, well, if I opt in early, do I have to pay a fee to join? No, you don't. This is about exercising your right and your independence in energy. Solar customers, you can't opt out any earlier than 60 days. If we have said, you can join us, but that 60 days prior to your true update is when you actually start. So post-March opt-out, so that was I was talking about. One of the things that happens is to help maintain, people bouncing back and forth between I'm in, I'm out, I'm in and out, makes it very hard for planning power purchases and kind of maintaining that load that we need for having responsible and available power. So PG&E has two approaches to it. After March, for those of you who are in the January enrollment period, after March, PG&E will ask you to make a choice. Return immediately, which puts you on what they call a transitional rate. That transitional rate sits there for 6 months, and it's whatever the market rate is. If the market rate is down, great, you've got savings. If the market rate is up, you'll pay more. If the market rate is volatile, meaning it's going up and down and sideways, then you'll be exposed to that for 6 months. The section option, then you're exposed to that for 6 months, and then at the end of the 6 months, you go back to whatever your original rate plan had been. If you choose the 6-month wait, then we tell PG&E you're coming back. That gives them the chance to plan and take care of getting ready for you, and then you go back to PG&E. Once you've done that, PG&E will hold you for 12 months. So after March of 2022, your decision has a 1-year hold. So folks who've been calling up and saying, hey, I want to opt out, and things along those lines, we just want you to make sure that when you get to that point, if you're making that choice, that you recognize after March 2022, PG&E will hold you. You opt out during this period of time, you can come back, but after this enrollment period, the opt-out will be subject to these conditions, which are PG&E conditions, and Pioneer honors them and ensures that you're aware of them when you make your choice. So with solar, yes, Pioneer works with solar. We have a lot of folks coming in and running into solar companies and things saying, oh my gosh, it doesn't work. Well, it depends. It depends on how you use your solar. It depends on how much you generate. It depends on whether, if you're comfortable with monthly billing versus annual billing. It's a whole bunch of different variables. Right now, Pioneer has over 30,000 solar customers. It's a lot of people with solar. We've been doing individual bill analyses because solar is one of those things that is so unique to each person. You all may have the same size system. Everybody has a 10 kilowatt system, but one person might have medical baseline and a time of use. Another person might have just E1. Another person might be in E6. One person may be in NEM2. Another one may be in NEM1. All of those factors affect how it works with billing and how it saves. So some of those, if you're having a lot of worry about making a decision, give us a call. We can talk about it, walk you through the components and help you see how it would work for you and then make the decision that's right for you. Again, Pioneer's about exercising your choice. We want you to make the choice that's best for you. Some things to let you know about with our solar program. If you generate more than you use, and that's a net surplus generator. At the end of 12 months, Pioneer takes a look back and says, wow, did you generate more than you used? If you generate more than you used, you get a half-cent more than PG&E pays. So we index to PG&E. If they pay 3.5 cents, we pay 4. If they pay 4, we pay 4.5. And it can, for some folks who have a lot of excess generation, that can add up. Again, we were talking about one of the primary differences between Pioneer and PG&E with solar is that we bill monthly. And so that means we reconcile each month. There's no one large bill over a year. And so you reconcile any credits you generate one month will roll forward to the next month. And they'll roll forward again if you generate more than you use. They'll keep going until you get to a month when you don't have the generation to cover what you used. And then we start nibbling at those credits. Once those credits are gone, if you don't have the generation or the credits to cover what you've used, then you would pay. And so might be a small amount, but that's it would be paid that month, and then you'd reset at a zero the next month and see if you generate or use again. With PG&E, they have the billing of a full year. So if you start out, it might have credits, and then if you have months you generate and then months you don't generate enough, they just smash everything together at the very end. For customers who have net surplus generation, it's usually not too much of a problem. For those who use more than they generate on a regular basis, they're called net consumers. That can result in a high end of year bill. So just kind of watch those things, see how yours works and what might work best for you. Again, we only work with the generation, so you'd still have PG&E's true up for the transmission and distribution lines, but that's how that goes forward. We are happy to answer questions about how it works with solar. We've been working with solar providers to help them understand. We've done a number of analyses just to kind of help folks see how it looks. So if you have questions as a solar customer, please give us a holler and let us see what we can do to help. Okay, so we've talked about rates and we've talked about how Pioneer works with billing. So what other benefits does Pioneer provide? Well, one of those is advocacy. Pioneer becomes the voice of the Sierra Nevada and the foothills on a lot of different topics, both at the legislature and the Public Utilities Commission. There are a lot of decisions that come forward that sound great in certain communities and certain areas, but don't necessarily work that well for those of us living in the Sierra Nevada, where we have hot climates and climates where you have 20 degrees in the winter and 115 degrees in the summer. So we advocate on those. One of the first ones we advocated on, and we started in June of 2019, and Pioneer is the lead community choice aggregator on this very topic, the public safety power shutoffs. Some of our advocacy has resulted in documentation that was provided to the Public Utilities Commission evaluating the 2019 public safety power shutoffs. If everyone remembers, we were all in the dark. Most of Northern California was in the dark in 2019 for quite a bit of time. We pointed out some different components of it, provided documentation, started pushing the Public Utilities Commission to have better criteria for these. No one will argue that if turning off the power for 24 hours would have saved paradise. None of us would argue that. Or if it would have saved, everyone in the Dixie Fire, we will not argue that. But there is some measure of reasonableness to this that needs to be upheld, because not everyone has to be turned off all of the time. It really needs to have good, strong criteria for this. It's supposed to be an action of last resort. And that's what community choice aggregators have been pushing for. The result has been a slow decrease in the number of PSPS events called. And so we've seen that reduction over the past couple of years. Now, in a new one that popped up recently was EPSS. They're called fast trips, or electric power line safety shutoffs. This is a supplement or new program that started in July of 2021, and it was the introduction of equipment onto the transmission and distribution lines for the purposes of fast detection of an anomaly. Could have been a spike, could have been an arc, could have been a drop in voltage, anything that would potentially cause a fire. Could be an animal strike, vegetation strike, you name it. The equipment was designed to automatically turn off the power in those cases. Well, when these equipment sounds really great. Okay, it's taking care of it. You're not turning off all the power. You're only turning off a line that may have a problem. Unfortunately, when they were first installed, they were extremely sensitive. And I know a lot of folks in Georgetown, Pollock Pines, and a big chunk of Placerville have been subjected to these EPSSs all throughout the summer, long periods of unexplained, unannounced, unexpected shutoffs. We also had them in Placer County. So when we first, we've been seeing that some outages going on, and we've been asking for information and trying to dig around and find out about what it was. And that's when the Public Utilities Commission responded and let everybody know that, okay, PG is doing this. It's a special type of equipment. It's causing issues. And so Pioneer again stepped in and started advocating on behalf of El Dorado County and Placer County, pointing out that schools should not be down 12 times from the start of class in August through October, that communities should not be turned off so often that you have businesses hurting or people at risk, especially those who have medical equipment. So that has been addressed. We continue to work with PG&E on making sure that notifications go out, that the communication is clear about when these things are starting. They turn them off outside of the fire season, but they turn them back on in the spring. So we've been asking for, well, when you turn them on, what's the notification? How's the calibration going to go? How are you going to notify everybody about what's happening so we can be prepared? So we've been pushing for a lot of those things. AB 843, biomass funding. A lot of the communities in the Sierra Nevada are very aware that the wood fuel, the forest fuel, needs to be removed to improve the watersheds, to reduce fire hazards, and to help with emissions, because materials lying on the forest floor decay and release methane. So one of the options that's out there is putting in biomass. But under the state program that helps support biomass, only investor-owned utilities could participate. So AB 843 was one of those bills that Pioneer sponsored, and our own Sam Kung was an expert witness for at the Senate and the Assembly, to talk about how opening up this program, no additional funds, no additional direction of anything, just allowing community choice aggregators to be able to participate, could actually open up and spur growth in the biomass area. So Pioneer was part of that. It was amazing. This is one of the bills that passed unanimously. So we are very proud of Sam's work and Pioneer's leadership on this one. One of the other things that we do is local spending. When you have an organization that deals with power and all of this, the majority of our purchases are power, but we do have some discretionary funds. So about 3.5 million is available to us for services, janitorial services, legal services, pens, pencils, printing, those kinds of things, as much as we possibly can. Pioneer directs its spending locally. So we had over 40% of our spending in 2020 was in Placer County. That was our service area at that time. So it was in Placer County. Now that we have El Dorado County, we're ensuring that as much as possible, we're opening up opportunities for local businesses to participate with Pioneer for contracts and purchases and things. From there, we went regional. which went up to about 77%, and statewide was about 83%. So Pioneer really focuses on buying as much local as we can. When it comes to power, we do the same thing. We've had contracts with Placer County Water Agency. We have one with the El Dorado Irrigation District, Rio Bravo, which is in Lincoln, Sierra Pacific Industries, also in Lincoln. So we try where we can to find local generators and support that local power generation. In addition, one of the things that Pioneer can do as a community choice aggregator is respond to local issues and events. In Placer County, we had the river fire. We know that the El Dorado folks, you suffered with the Calder fire, and our hearts we were worried about all of our friends and family and neighbors who are up there. River fire happened in Colfax area, lost a lot of homes, a lot of damage. What Pioneer was able to do, the board looked at it and said, what can we do to help these folks who've suffered? And one of the things they determined is that they could waive the bills for July and August up to $50,000 to cover those folks who lost homes and suffered in that event. Really, they shouldn't have to pay for utilities when your home has been destroyed by a fire. So that was one of the things that the board determined, and one of the things that we did locally. So we also listen to our customers. As customers, we talk about Pioneer being a locally owned utility. Well, that means you, as the owner, come to us and say, this is the program I want. I want to see rebates. I want to see electric vehicle charging stations. In response to a survey that Pioneer had conducted, we had a number of customers say, we'd like to have a 100% renewable product. We'd shown you earlier Green 100 versus the Pioneer Standard. This is what Green 100 came out of, was customers asked us, could you please put something together? So we have 100% renewable resources in this option. There is no other option. If you want 100% renewable power, this is the only option you have. PG&E does not offer something like that. It's completely voluntary. It's a customer choice. It's an option. You can join Pioneer at the standard rate or choose to opt up. It is something that you select based on your personal beliefs and desires. It does add 1 cent more per kilowatt hour for the power on your rate. And it averages out for most folks in the residential saying about $7 a month. So what else is Pioneer? Well, Pioneer is about local control. Pioneer's board members are local elected officials. They're not compensated for this. They're serving on the board as part of their duties as a board of supervisor or a city council member. They are we've talked about our ownership and being locally owned. We talked about that we serve competitive rates and options. Most of our employees live within Placer and El Dorado County, so we are directly affected by the programs that we have. And so when we say you're our friends and our neighbors, we mean it. We live next door to you. We're out there. We shop into the same grocery stores. We shop at the same facilities. We see each other and in the Starbucks line. We have another program called Community Programs Advisory Committee. It's the CPAC. The CPAC is a group of individuals, 5 from El Dorado County, 6 from Placer County, and they're coming together to help guide us on local programs. Pioneer can decide to make programs, but wouldn't it be better if the community told us what they wanted? And these individuals have applied to be part of the CPAC. They are bringing forth their experience, exposure, and knowledge of the communities to help us look at what would be great programs to offer those people who are with Pioneer. In addition, the local control, as we talked about, we're showing you some of the rates and things that Pioneer's had from 2018 to 2020. Pioneer actually saved Placer County residents and businesses over $32.5 million. That means that money, it's not a rebate. It's money that never left their wallets or the tills in the business. Had they been strictly with PG&E, that money would have gone to San Francisco, but instead, with Pioneer savings and our rate structures, we saved $32.5 million, and that was money that stayed in our communities. So one of the last things we're going to get to is, why would you choose Pioneer versus PG&E? Okay, rates might be something, advocacy might be something, but here are a couple of other things, side by side. Pioneer's local control. You drive this bus. Your priorities, your interests, your wants, that's what we're looking for. You can come to the board and you can say on every agenda item, it's regulated under the Brown Act. There's public comment periods. You can talk to the board members directly. We have local control. We're not for profit. In comparison, PG&E's got about 940 million shares. They are responsible to Wall Street. They do have to pay attention to what their shareholders are requiring and demanding, because those dividends do drive a lot of it. According to a third-party utility watchdog group, their PG&E as of June 2021 had about $814 million in net income. Pioneer, we don't have a profit. That's part of how we get our savings is we don't have profits. We try and maintain good rates. We answer to ratepayers. PG&E answers to Wall Street, local staff. Some, PG&E, we have a lot of local folks here. Everyone has, I have an uncle who works for PG&E. All of us have neighbors and friends who are PG&E's boots on the ground, handling the transmission, distribution, gas, and all those things. Love them folks. Couldn't do anything without them. But when it comes to the operation of the actual company and policies and the decisions and the drive for rates, that's based in San Francisco. Pioneer is based in Placer County and El Dorado County. Our office is located in Rockland. You can come see us. You can come to the board meetings when they become public again, when COVID's done, and be there. We have stable and competitive rates. Like I said, Pioneer has not changed its rates or adjusted anything since October of 2019. This March adjustment is the first one in 2+ years. If you look at PG&E, you'll notice most every time there is a break on your bill where you have one bill, but there's from November 15th to November 30th and from December 1 to December 15th, that's an indication of a rate change. It's not necessarily clear what it is. Is it generation? Is it transmission distribution? Is it a fee? Don't know, but there's a rate change. PG&E averages about 3 to 4 of those a year. So Pioneer, stable and competitive. Competitive cost, stable, not a lot of change. And again, we have 3.5 million that we've reinvested in the community. We continue to push for savings and push for putting money into the community through our purchases. We are also, we are local. We have our folks are El Dorado and Placer County. PG&E has about 5.5 million people that they have to take care of. And so sometimes they can't always be there for us the way we'd like them to be. But with Pioneer, we try and be there as much as we can and give as much assistance as possible. So with that, here is our contact information. That number, this is the secret number. It is the direct number to the Pioneer Community Energy office in Rockland. So you get right through to there and you'll have someone return the call to you if we aren't immediately available. A lot of times we're on the phone with a customer, so we get back to you as quickly as we can. We also have a customer service email. You can always send an email there. We have folks watching that and sending it back or around, and we get things taken care of. There's a lot of information and documents and things on our Pioneer Community Energy webpage about solar, about supplier diversity. So if any of you are a business and you want to know about supplier diversity in our procurement processes, that's there. We have rate information and conservation information, information about our solar program. It's all there. We try and be as transparent as possible. We also have a Facebook page, Pioneer Community Energy. And with that, I think, Mark, we are open for questions, unless you have something else you'd like to add that I may have missed.
No, I think we've got everything covered that you went over here. I've got a slew of questions, shall we say. So I'm going to throw a couple of the common ones out there, Alexia, and let you talk about it. We have a couple of them as it relates to the transition to the PG&E time of use rates.
Oh,
So
okay.
Could you I'll mark those, there's 2 or 3 of those on that. So just kind of cover the whole topic of the time of use real quick, and that'll get everybody.
So let's go over what time of use is. Time of use is a rate structure that the Public Utilities Commission ordered. This is ordered by the Public Utilities Commission for all investor-owned utilities to do. They wanted to try and shift when people use power from the peak hours of 4 to 9 p.m. when power's most expensive to earlier in the day. Solar produces between the hours of 9 and 4 really well, and then it tapers off dramatically and almost like completely goes dark after 4 p.m. So because of that, the Public Utilities Commission set up these structures. That process has been going on for a couple of years, and the enrollment period for those of us in the hot climates, basically the Sierra Nevada, the San Joaquin, Sacramento Valley, the Northern Valley, our period of time is coming up. The enrollment's in April. The time of use was set up. It started out in the coast and has been slowly rolling forward in each service area: Southern California, Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and PG&E, month by month. NUM customers, solar customers, sorry, you guys got enrolled around your true up starting April 2020. Yes, I believe it's 2020 or 2021. No, it's 2020. Sorry, we've got with the solar, it started a little early. With the rest of us, our enrollment date is going to be April 2022. So what you should be seeing from PG&E is a communication that says, hey, time of use is coming. Here's what it looks like. That is an individualized presentation of what your electric bill would look like based on your current rate, which may be an E1 or an E6 or something along those lines, and then time of use C, which is the 4 to 9 p.m., 7 days a week time of use, and time of use D, which is a 5 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday time of use structure. And so when you look at those and it has a total on there, it might say on E1, you're $890, on TOUC, you're $901, and on time of use D, you're $892 or something along those lines. What PG&E is offering you is the opportunity to make a choice of what rate you want to be on. It's very important for everyone who gets one of those notices. Either call, email, or tear off that little perforated page and check which one of those rates you want. Let PG&E know so that you are on the right rate for what works best for you. If you have more questions about other rates, there are other rates on PG&E's website at pgne.com/TOU choice. And you can take a look at those. There are some for electric vehicle users and some others like that. So with that, the time of use is something that is just automatic and is being part of the direction from the Public Utilities Commission. I hope that's answered your question and let you know what your options are. Do exercise your choice. If it's still confusing or if you have additional questions, you can call us at our number right there on the screen and we'll answer that for you. We also have a time of use page on the Pioneer Community Energy page. It has links to some of the resources and some explanations of what's going on, why, and how. So let us know if you have anything there. So hopefully, Mark, that covered that one.
Yeah, and then we had a few questions on the transferability of programs such as budget billing, rebates, all that kind of stuff. So if you can kind of.
So let's look at this. We talked about how Pioneer is the generation, but we still have to use PG&E's lines and poles. So technically, you may not be a PG&E customer for generation, but you're still a PG&E customer for lines and poles. So all of the rebates and those things are available to you. One of the things that folks don't realize is that like the California Alternative Rates for Energy or the Family Electric Rates Assistance Program, Medical Baseline, those programs are programs the state directs and PG&E administers on their behalf. So it doesn't matter who your provider is, those programs are available to you. And if you're on them now, they transition over with no hiccups, no needs to do anything. If you are looking at enrolling in them, PG&E is still the administrator. You still go to PG&E to renew if you need to, or to apply if you want. Those are still there. Now, budget billing is a little bit different. That is a service offered by PG&E where they average out all of your bills over the year, and then they charge you a flat fee to kind of allow you to have a predictable cost each month. So it basically allows high winter bills and high summer bills to be averaged out by the lower cost on the spring and summer, or spring and fall. The challenge for PG&E is with community choice aggregator, they don't know what your generation will look like. So budget billing is still available on the transmission and distribution portion, which is usually about 70% of your bill as it is, but on the Pioneer section, not so much. So if you are looking at that and that is a concern for you, let us walk through what your generation might look like, because that way we can help you take a look and see how that might look for your budget, and what you might need to choose if that budget billing is really critical for you. Some other programs, Solar Choice customers. If you are on Solar Choice, we did not enroll Solar Choice customers specifically because that is a closed program now. It took a lot of work for people to get into that program, and we don't want to have them drop out, and we don't want to disrupt that. Also, for those customers who are on Smart Rate, that is a special program where PG&E provides you an alert telling you to that you've got some days between the hours of 2 and 7 where you have to conserve energy, and that's between the months of June and September. And so that's a program we can't offer. So for those of you who are on Smart Rate, we didn't enroll you either. So you can join Pioneer, absolutely, no problem. You just call Pioneer and say, I want to opt in, not a problem. And you become unenrolled in those programs and enrolled with Pioneer. But if you didn't want to, you don't have to worry about the opt-outs, because we didn't tag you as someone to be enrolled, because we wanted to make sure you stayed on a program like that. Most of the other programs, they're available. Rebates, available. PG&E energy efficiency, available. The PG&E solar lines and their customer service, available. PG&E for any type of line evaluations and solar installations, available. So yeah, all of those things remain intact. So next question, Mark. Hopefully that covered everything. Let us know if it didn't.
So there was a couple questions as it relates to NEM 2 versus NEM 3, and where's that going and what does that look like?
Oh, that's messy. I think
Yep.
that's the only word we can really use for it. What a messy bit of business. So to let everyone know, the Public Utilities Commission, we had a NEM 1, and the Public Utilities Commission said, okay, in 2016, we need to adjust this because NEM 1 is way too generous, and it's not quite working. Right? We're having many more people participate in NEM than we thought. So they made NEM 2. NEM 2 had some structures like you must be on a time of use rate. There were some other constructs regarding connection fees and things along these lines. NEM 3, it's actually the Public Utilities Commission in their proceeding on NEM 3 has declared it wants it to be called net billing. They actually spent an entire paragraph in their proposed decision discussing why they want to call it net billing. But the net billing / NEM 3.0 is directed at trying to bring balance to the solar program. So one of the things the Public Utilities Commission and most of us want is we want to have a healthy solar program. We want to have solar work for customers who want to invest in it. Not a problem. But under the current structure, there has been a cost shift for those customers who don't have solar. Because of the way solar is compensated, there has been a $3.4 billion shift. And that's a nice big number. What does that mean? It means about $245 per residential customer has moved from residential customers to underwrite the cost of a solar program. Now, that doesn't mean that each person gets $245. It just means to support the entire program across all of the different sectors. That has been the cost shift. So the Public Utilities Commission is struggling between trying to maintain and keep solar and rooftop solar going and keep the solar industry healthy, and addressing a cost shift that will only get worse if they do nothing. So that's the purpose behind the new net billing NEM 3.0. What are some of the proposals that have happened? The Public Utilities Commission put out a proposed decision a couple weeks ago. They just asked for comments to be turned in this past Monday, and they got a load of them, at least 20 different briefs talking about the problems with the proposed decision. Some of those things included for solar customers who are on NEM 1 and 2, one of the premier things was that they would eliminate the 20-year grandfathering and cut it to 15 years. That's better than the original proposal, which was 7, but it is for those who have time left on their agreements with their solar providers and with their utilities. That truncates it by about 5 years. Some of the other things they've been discussing, a grid participation fee. Now this one's a little messier because it was going to be a flat rate based on the number of kilowatts in a solar system. So they were going $8 a kilowatt. Well, if you had a 6 kilowatt solar system, you'd pay $48 a month. If you had a 10 kilowatt system, you'd pay $80 a month. The problem that a lot of us had, and the community choice aggregators pointed this out, is that that's nebulous. That 6 kilowatt system may or may not generate what they think it generates. It may or may not be 100% efficient. It may or may not have panels that are always working top notch. It fluctuates with the seasons. And we looked at it and said, if your concern is with paying into the grid and paying for the portions of the grid and some of the non-bypassable charges, then put those charges on the bill. Don't levy a fee that's gray and can't be tracked back to a specific program or cost and cannot be calculated against usage. So we're going to wait and see how all those comments come in. There were quite a few against the grid participation cost. So we have to wait and see how that one rolls. There were a couple of others regarding commercial customers. There were some additional programs and ideas for ensuring that folks who are in disadvantaged communities or low income had access into solar at the point of time now where solar has become cost effective enough that lower income and middle income folks can afford it. Now they're changing the program so they don't have the same benefits that those who had the funds and the resources to invest in it initially did. Well, there's some efforts under that program to try and balance that out and make sure that there's fair, equal access to all. There are a bunch of other things that they're proposing. We're waiting to see what that all comes out and looks like. They were supposed to have a decision voted on January 27 of this month. But with all the comments they've gotten in, the word is that Energy Commission staff and the commission itself is looking at kind of pushing that back a little bit before going forward with a vote on the decision to maybe edit and change things. So let's cross our fingers for some good decisions there. They did have the desire to have the new net billing program start in March of 2022. We are unclear at this time if it will. There are some glide path rules regarding it and how they would transition folks who are in the process of getting solar. So we're waiting to see how all of those things work out. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of what's going on with the solar. In terms of those who are trying to get solar now and whether you'd be NEM 2 and the grandfathering, I don't know. There were a couple of different components that if they stay, might affect immediate NEM 2. There were some other things that if they changed would mean that your grandfathering could be kept intact post decision and for a period of time. So we just have to wait and see what the edits look like. So hopefully that was at least a start. If you have more questions on that, again, either customer service, email, or call us and we can go over it and kind of point you to some resources and give you the documents if you want to take a look. It's rather long reading, but you're welcome to it. If you have insomnia, I completely recommend it. So next question.
Yes, so we had a question. Hang on a moment, let me get back to get it right. An individual was asking about their E1 customer. And as they come over to Pioneer, if they're on a time of use rate, how does that transition over when they come to Pioneer? Do they lose the time of use? So maybe you could talk about transitioning from the PG&E rates, how we align them to our rates. And
absolutely. Okay, so what Pioneer did, because PG&E is our billing agent, it would be really messy and quite a headache for them, us, and the customer if we had all kinds of different rates. So what Pioneer did is we aligned our rates to PG&E. So if they had an E1 and EL and those kinds of things, we had an E1. What we did do is PG&E has 95 rates. That was quite a lot to manage. So we looked at them and we looked at the generation component, and where the generation component was the same, we took those rates and we condensed them. So you'll see our E1 rate includes maybe 12 of PG&E's rates. If there's a time of use rate, it might include like 4 or 5 of PG&E's rates. Any rate that you have now, that's your rate plan, time of use, E1, which is a flat tiered rate, all of those Pioneer mirrors. So whatever rate you're on, it transitions. For solar customers, I know one of the biggest concerns is, hey, I'm on NEM1, I've got an E6, what's going to happen? It stays intact. It all stays intact. If you are time of use C on a NEM2, you transition to Pioneer, it's intact. You're still on TOUC time of use and a NEM2. So we don't change any of those things. You drive your own program when it comes to your rate plan. So you can always change it at PG&E, and whatever you change it to, they tell us you've changed and Pioneer matches it up. So hopefully that answers that one. Next question.
So that is all the submitted questions I have online. I do not have any hands raised. If anybody in the audience wants to raise a hand, I can give you the ability to talk. And then we can answer your questions that way. So while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, just one point, and I think Alexia mentioned with PG&E and their January, they increased their transmission and distribution rates. But on top of that, there was also a significant increase to natural gas prices. And so as you all get your bills in February, myself included, and all of us, we're going to see what we are being told is a significant spike in our PG&E bills. In fact, it's going to be transmission and distribution. That's going to be natural gas. So just to be aware of that, when you get your bills, a lot of times customers, when they see a bill, the only thing that they notice is changing is Pioneer is now on line item on their bill. And as of today, there's been no adjustment to the Pioneer rates. And so customers are still realizing the 7% savings as far as residential goes. There is going to be a spike, and it is going to be unrelated to Pioneer. But just be mindful that a change is coming. I was reading an article where an individual in the newspaper interviewed some folks from PG&E, and they said gas prices increased by 90% over last year. So it's something we're all going to have to accept, I guess is the word for it. I don't know.
So for those of you who are interested in seeing how that looks, when you look at your gas bill, you will see the bundled charge. That's the infrastructure plus the cost of gas. On the right-hand side of your bill, there is a note that says gas commodity or gas costs, and it's on that one. It shows you what the rate for gas is each month. I never knew this. I just discovered this today. So I pulled up a couple of bills and I looked at a July bill and I went, wow, okay, it was 40 cents for my gas, just the gas portion in July, and then I looked at January and it was at 80 cents. So yeah, it's doubling quite a lot. But for those of you who are interested in tracking and keeping a look on where the gas prices are, on the right-hand side of your bill, where the little line is that divides the bill, makes that little right-hand column, you can see PG&E puts month over month what the gas prices are, so you can watch and see what they are paying. PG&E has assured us that's a pass-through. They don't add anything to that. It's whatever they buy the gas for, that's what we get it for. So if you're looking at that, just kind of know we don't normally handle gas, but this has been a unique situation where we were interested in figuring out what was going on. So other questions.
So I got a request by 2 people. If we could go back to the chart you have showing the March table, PG&E versus Pioneer for March with the expected rate.
This one. Okay. So what's the question?
No, it was just somebody wanted to look at this again and just understand it more.
Sure.
And I'll just cover it again using a different voice than Alexia. So both the generation rates are going up for both PG&E and Pioneer. That's because we both buy it on the market and we both have our long-term contracts. As you can see, if you look at generation, we're 30 to 40% cheaper just on that piece. The delivery rate's the same because they raised those rates in January. The surcharge actually went up in El Dorado County for the 2021 vintage from 2.9-ish to 3.1, 3.2. And now the savings for a residential customer are about 6.3, 6.5% every month. The important piece on this one, I'm sure Alexia mentioned this, is that the El Dorado County and Placerville customers are going to save $6.7 million in 2022 alone with these differences in rates. That's funds that, as she said, goes into your pocket or gets reinvested in the communities and helps with economic development and furthers the benefit of the regions we live in. So with that, we'll jump off to the last slide there. Oh, hang on a minute. I got a few more questions. So somebody was asking about the representatives that are available. So if you're asking about our board members, those are listed on our website and you can see their pictures and their names and all that stuff. If you look under the About Us category, you can see the board members as well as the alternate board members. And each of those are an elected official from their respective member cities and counties.
If you're asking about a Pioneer representative being able to do a presentation or something, or communicate with a group that you have, just please call us or connect with us at our email or the phone, and we'll see what we can do to help and offer that up. Next question, Mark.
I don't have any hands up. And hey, Donna, I'm going to allow you to talk because I'm not understanding your question that you've typed here. So if you're comfortable talking, I'm going to go ahead and hit the button. And then if you could unmute yourself and ask your question about the credit.
If you're asking about the climate credit, Donna, the climate credit, that's something that is a California program, and it remains the same for everyone, whether you're with PG&E or Pioneer, and yes, you will receive that climate credit. If you're asking a different credit question, hit that unmute button so that we can hear what you've got and see what we can do to answer it.
So I guess we're good.
Okay.
And I do not, the local reps from our communities. Okay, yes. So you're talking about our board members, the local representatives. Those are on our website under the About Us category. So depending upon if you're in Placerville, it's Michael Saragosa, and the backup is
it Dennis?
Dean or Dennis Thomas. And then in El Dorado County, it is John Heidel, and the backup is Laura Parlin. And if you're in one of the communities here in Placer County or one of the cities over here, I can give you those names as well. So, but all those names are available. And if you want to get a hold of them, obviously you can get a hold of them. They're public officials. And that is all the questions that we have. No more questions submitted, no more hands up.
Okay, so why don't we go back down just to make sure.
Oh boy.
Pop that one up back. There we go. So we'll just hold this up one more time just to make sure in case someone had a question or had a thought and wanted to write down the phone number. Again, customer service at Pioneer, call in that number and you can get a hold of the Pioneer team, our Facebook page. And Mark, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think it's just to be as a reminder, we're more than willing, and we have been doing a number of individualized analysis for customers. We can look at your bills and we can actually help you understand what your specific savings would be. And so feel free to give us a call, and we'll take the time with you. The NEM analysis is, I suggested to a few people online, give us a call and we can actually go through that with you to see if it is the right choice for you. We've told customers before it might be in their best interest to stay with PG&E. Not many times, but it does happen. But more importantly, it's our goal just to make sure that you all have accurate and complete information to make the best decision for you and your families. At the end of the day, that's what we care about.
And one of the things we did not mention, for those of you who are on medical baseline, you may have seen a notice from PG&E saying that they are going to begin incrementally adding the PCIA to your bill. For those of you who have had medical baseline in Placer County, you haven't had the PCIA, that exit fee, on your bill. It'll be added at 1/4 of what everyone else pays. So it's about 25%. For those of you in El Dorado County, if you have medical baseline, the amount of the PCIA you pay will be 1/4 of what everyone else does. That ends up making for rather significant savings. So if you have medical baseline or know someone who has medical baseline, encourage them to reach out to us to see what their savings will be, because it's different and it's deeper than if you were just a standard customer because of the way the medical baseline program works. For those of you who do not know what medical baseline is a program that allows those who have qualifying medical devices or health conditions, CPAP machines, oxygen machines, wheelchairs that need charging, environmental controls that must be maintained due to a medical condition where someone can't be too hot or too cold. So something that's validated by a doctor. And what it does is it allows your baseline to be doubled and still be at the lower price. So if you're allowed 450 hours, kilowatt hours in a month, and you have medical baseline, you can have 900 kilowatt hours at the low rate in that month because you have medical equipment. It is not based on your salary or your income. It's based on your medical need. It's a very special program. So if those of you know someone who has those kinds of needs and is not on medical baseline, let them know it's available. It translates over to Pioneer. It works with, it's one of those ones that is a statewide program. And so just know that it's available to you if that is something you have or someone you care about has and needs.
All right, well, that will conclude our presentation, but we are happy to stay online for a few more minutes here if someone wants to ask a question as people trickle away. But for all the rest of you, thank you very much for your time, and feel free to give us a call with any of your specific questions. This presentation will be posted on our website. We have other presentations on our website as well. If you want to see a different style, different variety, but the information is pretty close to the same, feel free to visit it and watch it at your leisure or share with your friends.